Hi, we're Vince and Stacie Sadowski, and we are so excited to be here with you today at Canoecopia to talk to you about beginning adventuring over 50. Hold on just a moment and I will start our presentation. Outdoor adventuring over 50 for beginners. Vince and Stacie Sadowski with 2weeksinahammock.com.
So I'm Vince, and I've been camping for about 30 years, just real minor stuff. And then about 7 years ago, I met Stacie, and we've been married 6 years now, and I've brought her into the camping, adventuring lifestyle.
Yes, and so I'm the beginner. I'm Stacie Sadowski, and as Vince said, I've been camping with him for over 6 years now. And when I started, I was probably about 46. I am 52 now. Vince is 53, so we're over 50. He's not the beginner, I am. So this presentation was created from my perspective as someone new to the hobby, and I wanted to really create something that would encourage you and share with you our philosophy for how to grow and improve as you camp and as you learn, and to really find some new inspiration. So, outdoor adventuring over 50. This is what our presentation today is going to cover. Why get out, safety and comfort, skills and gear, leave no trace, day hikes, day paddles, overnight trips, encouraging others, finding adventure buddies.
Now, this is about how to get started in it, not how to be a guide or how to go solo or lead other people. So this is getting started.
So why get out? We know that getting out in nature has health benefits, physical benefits from getting moving, breathing fresh air, being out in the sunshine. And there's also mental health benefits that are proven as well. And aside from those benefits, you can also challenge yourself, get out and to have some family bonding with your kids, your spouse, and make new friends or build relationships with your existing friends. So those are some basic reasons why, but what's your why? Find out what your why is and start there and be realistic about what you can do. This picture here, this is one of my whys, is to go to the beach and not see another person. This picture is taken on North Manitou Island in Lake Michigan. And when we go there, we are far away from anyone else. And so for me, that is key to being able to get out and to have this adventure lifestyle. Because before I knew how to backcountry camp or really get out and have some of these basic skills, I was really limited to where I could go and what I could do. And it's really opened up a whole new world to be able to get out and explore. So what are the advantages to getting a late start? Well, it's never too late. You are smart, and you are smarter than you were when you were 20. You're probably going to make a lot better choices when you go out, much wiser, and you'll use it well. So that's a huge advantage. Also, you know yourself and you can identify your barriers. You know your physical limitations. You understand, like, are your knees bad, or can you just, you have to have certain things, certain creature comforts. Hike your own hike. So understand yourself and embrace that. And you have the whole internet for research. There's never been a better time to be able to really find exciting trips, connect with other people, find what's local to your area. The possibilities are endless. There are meetup groups online, so you can connect with people easily now. You may be at this time in your life, if you're after 50 or older than 50 and just getting started, you may be an empty nester or close to being an empty nester. For me, that really has hit in the last couple of years, which has allowed me a lot more time and freedom to devote toward things that are my interests and hobbies as my children have gotten older. So that is another big advantage there. And then I can also get them out as well.
Yes.
You can connect with experienced campers who have made all the mistakes. Now, this is key. Now, I have had the benefit of being with Vince and listening to him and his friends tell all those hilarious stories about ridiculous
They were good times.
things that they've done, mistakes they've made, because everybody makes them. But I feel like I've gotten a jump start. I mean, I've certainly made my mistakes in the last few years and learned some lessons, but I got a jump start because I never tried to, for example, take a cast iron frying pan. What did you guys
Oh my
do?
gosh.
Like, yeah. So like certain things that him and his friends have done that they talk about, but I'm like, okay, good.
Yep.
All right. Won't do that. So that is key to getting started, is finding people. It's like finding a mentor professionally. You're looking for a camping mentor or mentors, just some people you can learn from. So safety and comfort. Now this is really key. Safety is very important. So you do not want to push beyond your limitations.
Know your limits.
It's good to know your limitations and to challenge your limitations, but do not put yourself in danger. So this includes assessing your physical health and having a really good, realistic expectation of what you can do. Can you do hikes that are 1 mile or 2 mile, just mostly around your city park? Or can you get out and do like a 10, 15 mile day on a multi-day backpacking trip? And so you need to really assess what you can do and have a realistic expectation for what that is. And now you don't want to underdo either. Like, don't limit yourself unnecessarily, but really put some thought into it. Talk to your physician, talk to your, other people close to you, but get out and try. So you want to also, for safety and comfort, you want to research and plan ahead so that you know what you're getting into. Understand the trails you're headed toward. Make sure that you're prepared for the conditions, for the weather. Just make those smart choices. Like if you're going to get out in a kayak, know if there's any storms coming. Things as simple as that you don't want to overlook. So always do that. I see a lot of conversations online in some of the discussion groups I'm in about people who go to trails, and even experienced campers show up and they realize, oh, they didn't bring enough water, or they underestimated what the trail was going to be like. And we've certainly done that a few times.
Oh yeah.
And so, live and learn.
Yep.
But starting small and simple is a big deal. So you want to say something about that?
Yeah. So when you're researching things, you may find things that seem like a little more than you're just ready to tackle right now. Start small. And if you haven't been outdoors a lot, start walking your dog around the block. Go out, find a park where it might have a couple miles of trails in the woods, and find out where your limits are, where your comfort is. How long do you like to be out? If you feel comfortable being out all day, maybe think about doing an overnight trip where you're just not out for a couple hours, but from morning till evening you're out in nature and just having a good time and appreciating the world. So start small and build up, and take advantage of these opportunities to experiment with your own gear. Are you able to carry stuff for a while? Do stuff more than you need for that particular day.
Right. And so you'll learn about yourself as you go. And so be very open-minded as you go as well, and have a posture and an attitude of continuous improvement and continuous learning, and having realistic expectations. I already talked about that a bit. So, and don't be disappointed in yourself. Just remember grace over guilt. If you feel like, oh, I should be able to do this or that because I know I could run when I was 20 or 30 or whatever, don't hang on to those. Today is the day. So do what you can do today and enjoy it and embrace it. Personal responsibility is big, and I'll talk more about this later as well. But when you're out and you're going on trips and you're with other people that are planning, you also want to make sure that you personally know where you're going, what you're doing, and don't expect other people to figure everything out for you. I mean, and I am very guilty of this. On some of our early trips we took, I just let Vince figure it all out. Him and his friends planned things, and I showed up, and and I got into some dangerous situations a few times because I hadn't really thought of myself as being in charge of what was happening with me. And no one's gonna, I mean, they weren't gonna leave me there, but but it definitely is an important thing to remember. When you're out in the woods, you always don't over rely on other people. You need to get some skills so that you can be independent enough to take care of yourself well. And that takes time to build those skills up. And so you're not going to go out day one knowing how to do everything. That's okay. Just always be working on growing and improving.
Right. And that doesn't mean you have to do it all yourself. But maybe be part of the planning, at least be aware of where they're planning on going and what you might be doing if you're with the group.
Right. Like, don't just show up that morning and say, I don't know, okay, I'm just going to follow you guys.
Yeah.
That can get dangerous.
Yeah. And you're going to have to pick me up when I fall down and can't make it. No, that doesn't work so well.
So skills. So looking at some of the basic and soft skills, as well as the technical and aspirational skills that could be on your list. The soft skills and basic skills include, number one right here is being able to bathroom outside. Now, I was at a conference years ago when I was first getting into outdoor adventuring, and one of my friends I sat next to in a presentation like this, they were talking about how to bury your poop in the woods, and she just shook her head and said, I will not do that. And she really limited herself, because if you're going to be, and maybe that's a limit you want, but if you are going to really want to get out beyond places that have flush toilets or even outhouses, it's a really easy basic skill that you can pick up, how to bathroom outside. There are videos about this. I've got a video on our YouTube channel talking about peeing outside for women and bathrooming outside, and just some basic tips for doing that. But you need to know that you need to bury everything at least 6 inches if you are in most places in the Midwest. Other places around the country, depending on the area, you have to pack things out, but you need to know the area you're going to, what the requirements are, what to expect when you get there, and do not let that be a barrier. It's really not that big of a deal. And once you get past it, you can do a lot of stuff.
Lots of animals do that.
Yeah, a lot of animals do that. Yeah. So another skill is not being afraid to say yes to things.
Yeah. When someone invites you out, if you've put out that vibe that this is something you want to do, and someone says, hey, if we're going on a trip, would you like to come along? Say yes. Even if you don't know how to do it, people will help you along.
Absolutely. And that's how I got started with Vince. He asked me to go out winter camping with him.
Winter.
That was winter camping for a weekend. And I said, yes, sure, why not? I had no idea how I was going to do that. And I had a lot of follow-up questions for him. And I learned a lot on that trip. But it was
that was a good trip.
It worked out well. Yeah. Another key skill is problem solving. And so these are transferable skills. Things, if you're good at logistics and figuring things out and, thinking under pressure, you'll be good at camping, because there's lots of opportunities to do some creative problem solving. And it's not always emergency problem solving. It can be just like, oh, how can I set up my camping gear better this time? Or how can I work with what I have when some of my food an animal got into it? What can I do now? So it's that kind of thing. And it's kind of fun, which leads to a sense of adventure. So these things are all adventures. And even when things go wrong, unless they go like dangerously, fatally, injuriously wrong, they are a good adventure, and they make for fun stories later, really.
Yeah, if you don't have good stories after a while, you're probably not having enough fun.
Yeah, or suffering enough at the moment. Right? Yeah, and so that's having a sense of humor, being patient, and just recognizing that you're learning and you're out there and things are gonna go wrong, and it's going to be funny later.
Yes.
Managing your personal gear. So you'll need to have your own backpack, carry your own stuff. That is something you'll always need to do. Even if you're not carrying all the gear that's necessary, you'll have your own clothing. You have to figure out the basic stuff that you need.
Yeah, and then the most basic of it is footwear. Make sure other people can't really help you with your shoes.
Right.
Try stuff out. Start with those day hikes. Get out there and break some stuff in, and really know yourself and manage it. So those are some of the basic soft skills. Now there are some technical skills that are very useful when you're camping, especially on an overnight or longer trip. You don't necessarily need to know these things yourself, but you should know that someone in your group has these skills. First of all, navigation. Whether you're using old-fashioned map and compass or more modern GPS, somebody should know where they're going, how to get there, and be able to get around.
And even if you don't know how to do this your first time out, like ask the people you're with, say, okay, how are you navigating? Are you using a cell phone app? What are you doing? And learn from them. So even if you don't know these things starting out, put all these skills kind of on your target list of things that you want to learn within the next couple trips, couple years, whatever, and really seek out opportunities to be near the people on your trip who are doing these things so you can learn from them how to do them.
Yep. And water filtration. So food and water are big things when you're out having an adventure. And most places, unless there are water pumps along the way, you're going to have to filter your water just to make sure that there's no harmful bacteria or anything in it. You generally don't want to just drink straight out of the lake these days.
No.
So again, this isn't something that you necessarily yourself need to be an expert on, but make sure that someone in your group is prepared to be able to provide water for the group. Food planning might be a little more personal, depending on the group you're in. It might be a group thing where you plan meals together. But this is something that you want to prepare ahead of time. And if you're going, like I said, for a couple days, overnight or longer trip, try packing before you go on your trip. Try eating camping food for a couple days, what you think you're going to take. So prepare yourself to not go to the refrigerator in the kitchen and have your food with you. And how much do you really need to eat? And make sure that you're prepared for that, because if you're not and you start running out of food and start depending on others, that kind of goes against the taking care of yourself.
Right. But that being said, people often have extra food and share.
Yes. Yeah, we've gone on trips where we know these guys, we don't even have to bring any food. They bring so much extra.
Yeah.
But that goes to knowing your group too.
Right.
Logistics and trip planning, like I said earlier, be aware of what they're planning. If you just show up and you don't ask any questions and they start doing stuff that you weren't prepared for, that's on you. You should know what the trip is going to be about.
Right. The length of the trip, where you're going, what the conditions are going to be like. If somebody else plans the trip, find out from them, how many miles are we planning to cover every day if we're backpacking or if we're kayaking. Get a real solid understanding of what the trip is going to be like, because a good trip planner will take into account the skill levels of all the people on the trip, and you want to express your skill levels. If you say, I can't really walk farther than 5 miles a day, please don't and then you get in a trip and they're like, yeah, our campsite's in 15 miles, you're going to be in trouble right away.
Yeah.
So you want to really have those conversations and get a solid understanding of where you're going and what you're doing every day.
And then there's some really fun kind of camping specific skills, such as, can you tie a knot? Do you know how to set up a tent, or work the suspension for your hammock if you're hammock camping, or there's a lot of that again, you don't necessarily need to know yourself, but it's good to know that someone in your group does. And these are things that you can learn, and it's very rewarding. So be prepared to pick up those tips and become self-sufficient. But when you're beginning, follow the leader. You are not the leader.
You are not the leader, right?
Make sure that someone else knows what they're doing. So when I'm taking stuff, when I'm packing for a trip, I usually break my gear down into 4 general categories: food, shelter, clothing, and tools. In the first group, food and water, anything that I'm going to need to consume. That may include your medicines, your whatever your dietary needs are. Water, a lot of people, if you're beginning, don't think enough about, but when you are camping, especially if you're eating dried food that doesn't have a lot of water content, you still need to get that water in your system. And a real general guideline is 2 liters of water a day. But if you are in a very hot environment, or you're doing something more physically exerting, like hilly hikes, you may need more. And so be prepared for that.
Right. And you don't want to get dehydrated, which is why it's really important to get comfortable with going to the bathroom out and about, because when I first started camping, I would avoid drinking a lot of water because I didn't want to have to go squat somewhere and pee. But then I felt terrible because I was dehydrated. So don't get dehydrated. Make sure you bring a lot of water. Make sure you're drinking a lot of water.
Yes. Shelter, it can be tents. Most people camp in tents. We prefer hammocks generally.
Like in this picture, we've got all of our hammocks in our group.
Yep. Sometimes where you're going, there may be shelters that you stay in, like lean-tos or little cabins. So just be prepared for that. Clothing, the biggest thing I can tell you about clothing, if you are outdoors for a couple days, try to avoid cotton as your main hiking attire, because when cotton gets wet, it gets very heavy. It doesn't insulate you. It will not keep you warm, and it will not dry out. And then you have to end up carrying extra stuff that isn't useful to you anymore. So try to avoid cotton. So synthetic or natural, like wool, is a much better choice than cotton. Tools, flashlight is very important. You may, a lot of times nowadays, find that your cell phone has a lot of the tools that you need. It can be your camera, your communication, your navigation, and your flashlight for that matter. Usually a knife is good. You might need to cut some strings, or whatever. Make a packing list on your computer, and you can Google some of the other top essential things.
If you Google top 10 essentials, you'll come up with lists. And so that's something you should definitely do before you go, and just make sure that you have all that gear yourself, or if it's the kind of gear that's shared gear, someone in the group has it. So making a packing list on your computer is a great way to keep track of what you're going to pack. And then when you get back from your trip, double check that list and say, okay, what else should I have brought? What did I not need? What did I not use? And camping is a game of continuous improvement.
Yeah.
And so it becomes like really fun to like, okay, what can I do better next time? So it's really addictive that way. So you always want to try to do better. And tracking it on your computer is great. I've got like different lists for all the different kinds of trips we do, whether it's kayak camping or a 2-week hammock backpacking trip, or just a weekend winter camping. I've got different lists for all these trips.
Mhm.
And so I just like pull up the list and pack. And then I always take notes when I go camping.
Lots of notes.
I keep a little field notes booklet with me, and I track like the things we did during the trip, the places we went, the miles we covered, and also a gear fix list. We have a running gear fix list of all the things we want to either do differently or gear that we noticed was worn out or needs to be replaced or repaired.
Yeah, sometimes you have stuff you can get through the trip just fine, but you'd be a little more comfortable if you had this.
Then you have your wish list, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Like I would like a new whatever, and yes. Okay, so that gets to the gear issue. So getting started with gear. So back to the idea of starting small and keeping it simple. You don't need to run out and buy everything. It's tempting to do because it feels like there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of people who will people who are campers who've done it a long time can be gear junkies, and they all get like really excited about super expensive tents, super expensive boots. And you kind of, when you start, you feel that pressure, like I should be spending a lot of money. I can't go camping. I don't have, $2,000 or even $500 to buy all this new stuff. You don't have to. You don't have to. Do not do that. Borrow gear, because guess what? Your friends that are gear junkies, they have a lot of gear.
Yeah.
If they just bought a new expensive tent, they've got an old one that they're not using. And people usually are happy to lend stuff to you, or you can buy it used. But yes, definitely borrow gear and slowly upgrade as you go. Personally, I still have, and I use them all the time, hiking poles that are actually ski poles that my mom bought at a garage sale for $5 like 7 years ago. And I use them for all of my hiking, all my snowshoeing, and they work fine. And eventually I'll probably, when they either wear completely out or I get really, get my mind set on it that I'm going to spend money on, but you don't need to do it, and things work just fine that are old. If you get into like doing ultralight camping, there's really a lot of pressure, weirdly, to spend a lot of money. But the truth is that you shouldn't have to spend a lot of money to simplify your life. If you're trying to go out with a philosophy of this kind of a Zen idea of being a minimalist and simplifying, why in the world would you be spending tons and tons of money on gear?
You don't have to. You don't.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
There's also gear libraries. This is something neat. A couple places in Michigan that I'm familiar with, the city public library system has gear that you can check out, like you check out a book. And there are specialty lending libraries that are not actually part of the public library system that will lend out gear as well. So you find those places in your community, and it's a great place to try stuff out, to borrow things.
Yeah, so you want to be prepared, but that doesn't mean that you have to be prepared with a lot of stuff. You can be prepared mentally, and people for thousands of years have been going out and walking around the earth and going and seeing things without all the modern things that some people think they need today. Right. So get back to basics and just get out there and do it. Start small, practice in your backyard if it's setting up a tent. Make sure that you know how to do it. Practice walking. Your dog doesn't need much to go for a walk. Why should you? Maybe a pair of shoes.
So leave no trace principles. This is a really important thing, especially when you're a beginner, is to know these 7 principles and to apply them in different situations. The first one is to plan ahead and prepare. And that's what you're doing, listening to talks like this and, really kind of getting in that mindset. And that includes, I already mentioned things like knowing where you're going, knowing what's going to happen on the trip, researching ahead of time. You've got no excuse to not research. I mean, you got the internet, right? There's a lot you can find out before you go places. The next one is travel and camp on durable surfaces. And this is very important because you want to minimize impact on nature. That means when you're camping in a campground, you want to stay within the boundaries of the impacted, worn out area that's the campsite. Don't go off onto the edges. You should really stay in that spot. It also includes on trails. In this picture, you'll see, this was on Isle Royal, and the trails are so muddy.
Crazy.
And they told us that when we got there, they said, trails are muddy, stay on the trails. Because if people start walking off the edges of the trails to try to keep their shoes completely dry, then you're widening the trail, and it's increasing the area of impact and making, a bigger mess. Disposing of waste properly. You'll see in the lower right-hand picture, there is some toilet paper. And, when you were a kid and you might have toilet papered your less than favorite teacher's house, that stuff doesn't just disappear. It gets wet and it mushes and it sticks there. And guess what? Same thing when you're outside in nature. And animals will dig stuff up. So you want to bury it at least 6 inches. And we find this all the time when we camp. I mean, it's mind-boggling that people leave their toilet paper laying around. And if you use wipes instead of toilet paper, don't bury those, pack those out. So please pick up after yourself. I'm a mom. I'm going to say, I've been known to bury other people's toilet paper. I will do it when I see it. Please don't make me do that. Okay. And leave what you find. Don't take things out of nature. Don't take rocks, sticks, plants. Leave what you find for other people to enjoy. Minimize campfire impacts. This is like stay within campfire rings. Use special tools for campfire, like a cloth that you can put underneath a fire. You can build over it. To avoid leaving fire scars out in the wilderness. And let's see, respect wildlife. So you want to not feed the wildlife. Don't try to touch the wildlife. Like, don't do things to inadvertently draw wildlife in. Always, keep your food safe from animals, and be considerate of other visitors as well. So don't be loud on the trails. Just recognize that other people are out there for a peaceful experience as well. And a couple of other pictures down here I want to mention. In the center at the bottom was an abandoned campsite we found in one of our favorite places for backcountry camping. And it was full of garbage and beer bottles, even though it was a no glass area on this beach. And, so don't do that. Please take away everything, pack out your trash, pack out your stuff, for goodness sakes. I mean, this was somebody's stuff. And then on the lower right, this is kind of an unpopular thing. I see arguments online about this all the time, but people like to build cairns with rocks. Now, I'm not talking about cairns where they're marking trails. Like on Isle Royal, there's rocky areas where where trails are marked with stacked stones. That's not what I'm talking about. This is like a structure somebody built on the beach. And it was a pretty good one. But when I'm out hiking in an area, I don't want to see evidence that other people have been there.
I feel like you're the only person there. Exactly,
because it does. It disrupts. It's disruptive of the wilderness experience to see things like that, and you should not be doing that. Building chairs out of logs and furniture. We see people do that. They'll like take logs and like bind them together and build furniture out in the backcountry. It's like, don't do that. Leave things the way they are. Leave no trace should be like common sense. Leave it the way you found it. And then other people can enjoy it, and it protects not just the experience, but it protects the environment for others in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So day hikes. Now this is just, these next few slides, we'll go through these quickly. And we're going to just talk about some quick iterations of what the differences are with the gear. So when you're on a day hike, it might be tempting to not take snacks or food or even take very much at all, but you should always have water when you go out. You should take a few snacks. You never know what's going to happen. Having some kind of shelter with you is often recommended. Although, if you're just hiking in your local park, that doesn't seem to make sense, but just know that that's often recommended. Clothing, it's always good to have layers. Tools, having your toilet paper, your shovel for burying if you're going to be out somewhere where you might have to use the bathroom unexpectedly. P-Style is a female stand-up urinary device I like to use. I've always have that with me. I'm having a dog bag to take away dog waste. Bug spray, sunscreen, those are always good to have with you, and your phone. Now, recommended apps for your phone are things like All Trails, Backcountry Navigator. They can help you find trails, understand what to expect, and also navigate while you're there on Backcountry Navigator.
Yep.
Day paddles, a lot of the same things. Have dry clothes in a dry bag in case you get wet. Also, always have your personal flotation device. Do not paddle without some kind of flotation device on, not just in your boat, on you, because you can get into trouble faster than you realize out in the water. Having an extra paddle is smart, and always having a hat, sunscreen, bug spray, or other bug protection. For overnight trips, now your day trips should be like a build up to your overnight trips. Use those as an opportunity to practice those skills on a day trip that you're going to use on an overnight trip. And that includes things like planning for cooking and water filtration, having your shelter, your tent or your hammock, something you can practice at home in the day, but then when you're ready for an overnight trip, you take it out. Clothing, my big recommendation is to not overpack, because after a couple of days, everything you have with you is going to stink anyway. It's good to have extras of things in case something gets wet, but you'll learn as you go how much you do or don't need. And again,
you really don't need as much as you might think.
You don't need as much as you might think. And avoid the cotton, because that does get wet, as Vince said. And for tools, the shared packing is helpful. We already mentioned this. If someone in your group has something that you can share among you, that's a helpful way to go. And this can include car camping, backpacking, kayak or canoe camping. So encouraging others who you might want to get out with you, maybe your kids, maybe your spouse, maybe a close friend, make it fun for them and consider their skill levels when you want to bring them along with you on something, and help them prepare, help them to know what to expect as well, and to manage those expectations. Like, how far can they hike? How long do they want to be out? Are they very sensitive to sun? Things like that. And listen to what their barriers are and respect that, and help them to determine whether or not those are barriers they want to either overcome, or if it's a hard barrier. Always build in margins when you have trips, and make sure that you have extra time, that you're not pushing daylight.
Generally you want to enjoy it, so you don't need to pack everything in. If you think you've got X number of hours in the day and you can hike so many miles an hour, don't try to hike them all, but take time to enjoy it.
Right. Don't rush. We see a lot of people do that when they plan trips. Like, they'll have like length or extreme destinations in mind, but you want to, hike your own hike. I mean, you'll learn what you like and what you don't like, but don't, it's not a race. You're doing it for yourself, and share what you love with other people. And of course, our biggest tip is to involve other skilled campers when you go out. Now, how do you find these other skilled campers? So finding adventure buddies, a really great way to do it is on Facebook. Look for groups that are related to your interests. For example, there's one called Women Over 40 Who Hike and Backpack. It's a really good group, and they talk about a lot of really good logistics, and people connect with each other on there and actually get together and go hiking. Isle Royal National Park is a group, as well as there's another page for the actual national park, but this is a group, and where people will talk about trip planning and trips and getting together. There's regional hiking groups as well on there. Specialty websites like hammockforums.net or meetup.com. Meetup.com is where people will put trips out there and say, hey, does anybody want to go on this hiking trip? So you can join that in our area, like the Lansing Orin Paddle Club is on meetup.com. That's how they manage their events. So you can find clubs through a group like that, or a website like that. Meet people, like your usual hangouts, the places where you go. We're not saying go out to the bar and pick up hikers, but the idea is that go to the places where you normally socialize.
Where you know people.
Where you know
Yeah.
people, socialize, and ask and learn, like, who likes to go out and do stuff, and connect with those folks.
Yeah, it might be that someone that you've known for a long time, you didn't realize they were into all that kind of
Right,
stuff.
right. Then there's also outfitters and clubs. For example, local chapters of the North Country Trail Association will get together for hiking events on a regular basis. So find out who's in your area, and that's a really great way to get started, because some of those people you meet on day hikes, they might be planning a longer trip that you could jump in on.
I hope you've enjoyed this this presentation.
Yeah, and thank you very much for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, follow-ups, you can reach us. There's our email address as well as our website, and we would love to hear from you. Thank you, and enjoy Canucopia.
Enjoy your hikes.